Ed, thanks for coming. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Hey, it's times like these that friends stick together. I mean, it must be really tough to lose your companion.
We were so close, Ed. I mean, we could just spend hours just looking at each other. All we needed was each other.
That's how I feel about mine.
No, what we had was electric. The light of my life. And now I'm all alone. Everything was so easy.
I know what you mean. Mine tells me what to wear, what to eat, and what to even talk about.
There was never a dull moment. There was never a dull moment. There was always something to do. How could something like this happen?
Time passes. Parts wear out.
I don't know. I'm so confused, Ed. I don't know if it's dead, alive, or almost live on videotape.
It's the Joel Fernandez Show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Joel Fernandez Show. I'm Joel Fernandez, and this is the show for starseeds and manifestors, Christic alchemists and truthers. There's a lot of controversial stuff I talk on the show, a lot of how consciousness shapes our reality and how we're creating a world as we move forward into an era of gnosis, of knowing who we are and stepping into empowerment. This is a channel of love, this is a message of love, and it's all inclusive because we are all moving forward, and it's in our best interest that everybody joins the winning team and chooses the side of good and love and harmony and working together with all of humanity. But we're never going to be able to do such a thing if we're constantly being programmed by people that don't have our best interest at heart.
Breaking news.
It's disturbing. It's a conspiracy. An in-depth look at the history of the television. This startling and meaningful special coming up next on News with an Attitude.
From the teeming metropolis of mind-numbing intelligence, from the high-level intellect of news journalists, this is News with an Attitude with Joe Knows All. Covering economics, nuclear explosion, natural disasters, nuclear explosion, technology, nuclear explosion. This is News with an Attitude, featuring the award-winning vital journalist,
Joe Knows All.
Because we know no one's really important unless they're a journalist. This is News with an Attitude. We distort, you can't retort.
I'm Joe Knows All with news and views from your local communities and planet Earth.
We interrupt this program to bring you the news.
It's a conspiracy.
Some say it's a simple toy, but it's a conspiracy. It's not a fad, it's not a fashion, it's a weapon.
Television, the newest miracle of modern electrical engineering.
People of the world, beware. You're being used by this evil device. Don't be fooled, or you'll fall victim to this deadly weapon.
Okay, fine. Thanks very much.
The deadly truth is that the television is an ancient, interdimensional portal.
You don't believe me.
Can I?
The history speaks for itself. It was 1925 when J.L. Bard, a Scottish engineer,
Captain, I'm giving her all she's got.
became the first person to actually transmit pictures using radio waves.
You may wish to deny it, but your eyes tell you it's true.
The Scottish engineer
Captain, she's gonna blue.
used an interesting idea for his transmission
Of course, its tremendous electric charge is what projects the radiation.
to project images across dimensions by converting them first to radio waves and then transposing them into visible spectrum. He apparently transmitted various human expressions from his lab to his living room.
This is the greatest moment of your lives.
This work was based on the earlier Crookes tube, developed in 1869 by William Crookes.
Destined to become the world's most popular science.
And this concludes our special on the Life and Times in-depth analysis of the history of the television. I'm Joe Knows All, reminding you that when it comes to mind control, news is where it happens.
This has been News with an Attitude, featuring the award-winning intellect of
Joe Knows All.
trained by the finest minds in journalism. Remember, it's not just the news, it's your attitude that makes the news.
Is this the end of our civilization?
Why do you believe what you believe? Because at some point in your life, you trusted the information that somebody was giving you. And that someone you trusted told you that a car was a car, a tree was a tree, a bird was a bird, the blue stuff above you is the sky. And that's the way that we began to determine what we believe to be a fact. Most of the things that we believe to be a fact in our lives are told to us through our stories or the news that we hear. So my question would be, if they were deceiving you with the stories they tell you, would you be able to recognize that?
When you think about the entertainment industry, what comes to mind? Movies, TV, music, right? Let's talk about this entertainment.
I've been observing you.
What if this entertainment was more than just entertainment?
Now in complete control!
When you're driving home from work, what are you listening to? When you come home after a long day and turn on the TV, what do you see?
The U.S. are bracing.
Saying that they're one.
Think about all the content you've seen throughout your whole life. A lot of it has actually made us who we are today.
So you don't know what's really going on.
Have you ever stopped for just a second, though, and questioned the content?
And with that being said, we're going to jump into our first Illuminati playing card. Once again, we have right here cable TV. Last time I was looking at this screen and it totally didn't look right when I was editing, so I got it on this screen once again. And as we see, we have a guy looking at a whole bunch of TV screens. Interestingly enough, each one of those screens is another card of this Illuminati card game. Let's not go there now. We're just going to read what the card has to say. 500 channels and nothing's on. Sound familiar? Add 1 to this group's regular and global power for each personality in your power structure. So each personality plays like 1 pawn on the chessboard. So the more pawns you have on the chessboard, the more capability you have of moving forward and winning. But as we see, it's a media card, and we're discussing media here. The media has all these stations, all these networks, and like the card says, nothing's on, meaning nothing of value is on, and they distract you with all these superficial subjects, but nothing that can really edify you. And most of the cards, we see Al Gore's in the cards, Saddam Hussein, we see the AMA, and we see martial law, we see the Druids, so we see some very interesting things, Godzilla, but I'm saying this because I know what the other cards are, but very interesting things that these are distractions like the Loch Ness Monster or the Second Bullet. Very, very interesting things, stuff to keep you captivated or a subject that involves you regardless, like kind of Al Gore or the AMA, right? But you're going to succumb somehow because like a soap opera, there's so many characters. 1 or 2 of them are bound to appeal to you out of maybe 20 on the cast. But they keep it with all this diversity of characters to appeal to a diversity of the audience. And they also keep everything at a cliffhanger. If you haven't noticed with the recent election, everything's kept in a cliffhanger so as to keep your attention on it. It forms a vortex, and from there it just drains the energy because people are focusing their energy on it. So it works both ways. It just funnels all that focus into one direction. And like the card said, this direction has no purpose. There's nothing really there. There's no substance. So all your energy is going, all your attention is going to something that is void of fulfillment. And that brings us to our second card, MTV. And of course, it's a pun on MTV, but MTV, literally, they don't make these things up.
It is a dark future time. The voices of hope have been all but silenced by a notoriously malicious and evil empire, the NME Corporation. They control the world's television and communications operations, and their mission is to control the future by controlling the minds of children.
So you can see, like, people know this and they've pointed it out for a long time. But MTV is MTV. Empty. And what is it doing? It's emptying people's minds with music that has no value. And hey, I grew up with MTV. I grew up with all that music. And yet there's a difference because the music is programming. But we're going to cover that in a bit. The card here says, this group and all other media groups in your power structure are totally immune to attacks from straight groups. Each personality you control gets +1 to its own power. So it tells you the type of audience appeal it has and the audience that it can influence and that it does influence. We see that the liberal media, when I say liberal media, I mean the extreme liberal media. There's an extreme liberal agenda and it's pushing it through not only media and education, but it's lobbying through certain interest groups and creating these what appear to be grassroots movements, but are extremely well organized and very well funded and strategically placed in certain places in different countries or wherever to facilitate public infiltration. In retrospect, we can see this, but a lot of people, and when it's happening, it's done so under the rug and underhandedly that people don't really see what's going on until it's too late. But if we're cautious and if we know what to look for, we'll be able to see it. These people are very sly and it's easy to see the messages that are being programmed. They're all done through methods that people find appealing. So because of that, it's very difficult to hurt the message when the appeal is masked through like entertainment or some form of psychic relief. And they facilitate both methods. They facilitate both the pros and the cons. So they feed both sides of the war, and they ultimately, like both sides of the coin, they get the coin to roll in the direction they want it to go. And here we see in their next card, underground newspapers. They finance an underground newspaper, and there's an underground narrative which they perpetrate, which facilitates that agenda which they're trying to bring about through the methods that are above the surface. The ones that are beneath the surface, they appear to be counterculture. They appear to be moving in the other direction, but they're still advancing a certain agenda. So you have to be very careful because they're masked with these kind of, as the card shows, nihilist news. And when I was younger, like when I was a teen, I worked downtown, and it was a very interesting experience coming out of a private Christian school with 30 students in the entire school to coming firsthand to the downtown evening life during the NHL playoffs and the Stampede. So it was very interesting, very bursting out of a cocoon sort of experience. But there was plenty of underground newspapers on the street, and you'd get them for free. That's the other thing. Nothing is free. And of course, it's paid for by advertising and all that stuff. But the sponsors and everything that finances these magazines, you have to look because there's a clear agenda going on when we see it. On the card, it says, whenever this group helps to destroy a corporate, straight, or government group, draw an extra plot card. So it shows that they have a bit of extra leverage and allow you to get in without having to do any work. It's like they do the work for you. In other words, it's kind of, you have to read between the lines in some of these cards, but it does tell you. And on the newspaper, the headline is, "Are You God?" And that shows that what I say on this channel with manifesting, a lot of people out there misinterpret this idea and take it to the egoist extreme. It's not an egoist idea, which is the problem when I say the I am is fractalized in all of us. People tend to think of it as an egocentric idea where I can manifest everything I want. What is in you to manifest is what you are here to manifest. It's kind of like you do what you are here to do, but understanding and realizing more of who you are and filling that part of the puzzle piece that you are is the point. It's not to say from the ego's perspective, because the ego sees everything that's external to it and paints a picture of what it wants based on that. That's not what I'm talking about. So when we come in tune with our desires that are in here, that is key to manifesting. And then our manifestations come like this. If your manifestations aren't coming, or you feel like some kind of uneasiness in it coming, or you're still attempting to manifest after a really long time, there's some kind of ego barrier or some kind of ego layer in between you and your manifestation that has to be resolved through inner work. And the only way to do that is to totally own yourself, totally own your manifestation, see what you're manifesting currently, and adjust the inner work based on that, based on what you're manifesting currently. That's the way to see how to re-gauge the levers, so to speak.
What happens to the power of your intellect when your mind gets unplugged?
Real control of our minds comes with the ability to face the real world. When we jump into our own created realities, we become vulnerable to the mischievous works of those around us.
Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? It's awful dark in here.
So we can't let other people influence our manifestations. We have to step into our true power as I am beingness. But the word is I am what I am. Ahaye asher ahiye. It's not I am the ego. It's I am what I am here to be.
Every program that is created must have a purpose. If it does not, it is deleted.
You're not staying with her?
It is not possible. Her arrangement with the Frenchman was for our daughter only. My wife and I must return to our world.
Why?
That is our karma.
You believe in karma?
Karma is a word, like love. A way of saying what I am here to do. I do not resent my karma. I'm grateful for it. Grateful for my wonderful wife, for my beautiful daughter. They are gifts, and so I do what I must do to honor them.
That's kind of what he's talking about in the Matrix, because that is the point of fulfilling our duty. And that's what makes us live our best life yet. When we're trying to be someone else, or we're comparing ourselves to an image that maybe we've been fed, maybe we've been told, maybe that has been created by our ego somehow. When we're living in comparison to that, we're actually fighting the natural direction which we're being pulled in. And when we're doing that, we're resisting the best life because the best life we have comes with ease and flow and harmony with this divine nature within us. So it flows out of us and it bubbles forth and creates the reality in events and locations and circumstances and relationships and all these things around us. That is how life unfolds in experience. But if we allow people to control our experience, we get to be like how the election was manipulated by pollsters. Yes, no, maybe, 10%, 5%, 2%, 1%, 0.5%, leading here, failing here, falling behind here, gaining here, tendencies here. We'll tell you what you think. If the pollsters are involved in an attack, you may ignore any bonuses or penalties for the alignments of the attacker and defender. If they work against you, of course, those bonuses or penalties which help you will still count. You see, that's the thing. With pollsters, it's like the election, like if you can't rig the numbers, you can rig the way people feel, and you can rig the polls numbers before the election, and you can rig the way people turn out to the election based on these numbers. You can lead numbers up and then have them crash right before the election, or gain right before the election. You can have them swing either way, or have certain numbers that are supposed to gain stay steady. What's going on? You're manipulating people's minds with false information or manipulated numbers. There's a very interesting book, How to Lie with Statistics. And it just shows you how it's so easy to use numbers, and that's what they're doing with the cases right now. They're manipulating them, and that's why they're using cases and not actual deaths, because the death rate is so low. The recovery rate is so high, and they have to use numbers like, cases. The more they test, the more cases. And the thing is that it's so prevalent that everybody's going to have it at some point in order to build an immunity to it. And so if it's present in the test, hello. So we're dealing with asymptomatic and non-aggressive spreaders, and this whole kind of idea of a lot of hysteria where there is none. And when you look at the science, I urge you to do this on your own. Look at the science, both sides, and see who's really arguing and who's trying to cover something up. It's obvious when you look at both sides honestly. And that's the whole point of manifesting, is when we look and we own things and we can see what's working and what's not. We can change what's not working and better suit a life that's more conducive to manifesting our best life yet, and the best world that we can imagine, that we know we're deserving of. We know we deserve it. So what are we deserving of? Let's do it. Let's create it. Let's not let these talking heads tell us what to do or what to think or what to feel. How to think. Here we have one card, personality, Gordo Remora. And this is every late night talk show host. This is every talk show, basically. He's sitting there with his loafers and his chair. He's interviewing people and he's chatting with them. It's all scripted. It's all staged. It's everything on TV is programmed. It's staged. Look, I can talk to you about staging shows because I know a lot about media. I've studied graphics and I've studied media. I've done animation and I've done media production. So a lot of what I know about media is I know it has to be staged in order to look good. If it's not staged and it's not planned, it looks like your average YouTube video. No offense, but you gotta put a lot of work when you're doing a production. And here we have so-called talk shows, but they're actually bringing conversations into your living room, into your dialogue, sometimes things that you wouldn't even dream of discussing. And then they're having people resolve the issue and come to conclusions in dialogue so that you are hearing the dialogue and your mind is having this dialogue. Ultimately, it's NLP. It's neuro-linguistic programming. And through Socratic method and formulating a dialogue, your brain and your mind follows the dialogue and ultimately follows the reasoning that they're presenting. So they're indoctrinating this sort of thinking. Sometimes they're introducing subjects and ideas that we would disagree with normally. Sometimes, for the most part, it's 90% truth, but it's 10% lies. And it's a lot of lies by omission, but everything is programmed to get you to behave a certain way because they need you to be complacent. Next up on Gordo, people who believe in conspiracies. Are they nuts or just stupid to live? You decide. You see, telling people what to think. It's so obvious when you listen, and especially now, it's obvious what side these people are on. It's so obvious what they're trying to push on the public. We can totally see that they're trying to create this dichotomy when normal people, if they're educated and they look at the issues in policies, politics, and economics, and they look at these things objectively, there's no discussion. But the people that are manipulated by the media, oh my goodness, don't even cross them because you can't even discuss with them. He mobilizes hate and fear against fringe groups. Anything for a ratings point, Gordo gets a +10 bonus if he makes a direct attack to destroy a weird group. And that's just it. When you look at these other cards, you can see the categories. It doesn't really matter here because right now they're concerned with straight and conservative groups in terms of how the game classifies categories. We can see that the media is completely biased, and they've completely lost it right now because they have lost their defenses. They have just gone all out, and they don't care that they've exposed themselves. They're continuing on in their own, digging their own grave, really. And we're going to see exposure happen at such an exponential scale. It's going to be like the earthquake that is like a 14 on the Richter scale. We're going to see something so drastic that we didn't even think was possible. But it's coming because the exposure and the renovation that's coming, like Zoroaster said, the great renovation that's coming is a total revamping of everything that we've known, like every single system. That's the statue of Nebuchadnezzar. The statue itself is every single kingdom, every single domain of humanity. And the statue is of a human being. That means every single part of our society. And it's manifested as empires through history or aspects of astrology. Like those are fractalized versions of the holographic nature of the logos that's manifesting as the universe. So the universe manifests as all these layers and comes through, but what's really coming into renovation is the entire thing. The entire thing on every level, all 7 spheres of the heavens will be renovated to create a new heaven and a new earth, and that is the new age that has already begun. The renovation has already begun, and we are seeing it unfold. How do I know this? Well, what happened this summer with Hollywood? What happened this summer with Hollywood? We see that this whole summer Hollywood was shut down. And how is it that Hollywood is shut down when who's behind Hollywood?
Is the CIA involved in Hollywood?
Yes. Hollywood isn't just a couple of Jewish guys that got together with a couple extra bucks and started filming movies. It's a real intelligence operation, as I said, to disseminate subjects and ideas and opinions, ultimately to create a society, to engineer public opinion, and to create a new kind of paradigm where a dichotomous world of 2 worlds of balance and imbalance. And you create this imbalance by kind of introducing the Hegelian dialect. And then through the dichotomy, you have a resolution. So problem, reaction, solution. So you present the problem, and then you have the reaction, and then you present the solution, which you've wanted since the beginning. But in order to do so, you have to fuel both sides of the match. And that's how the counterculture is steered. A lot of times the counterculture exists, and it's sort of like a fringe movement, but they see fringe movements that are catching on, like Christianity was in ancient Rome, and then they usurp it, and then they redirect it into a way that's non-threatening to them, but that they can use it to take over the rest of the world and actually use it and say, oh yeah, we're Christian now, and we're using this whole idea as you guys are. But they're using it with a perverted message, and they completely get rid of the original message, which is where the real power is, right? But that happens all the time, and that happens in Hollywood movies. That happens when they rewrite history, and they're doing it now with movies. They're doing it on a more subtle way right now with actual historical figures. But like Jivgini presented in the last episode, and in future episodes, I'm going to cover a whole lot more about this Tartaria link and our true history. But as he said, that star forts and these ancient, amazing, astonishing structures that are built with precision and intricacy and beauty that don't match the historical narrative, they just don't fit into our history. But it's all fake, and it's all fake in order to hide the truth. And the card says something very interesting that alludes to this. Behind the phony tinsel of Hollywood lies the real tinsel. Well, what does that mean? That means behind the fake image that they're presenting in the movies lies the real image. They're actually telling you the truth through a veil. So sometimes when you look at these movies, a lot of movies are just symbols. A lot of movies are just symbols as to how reality works, or how aspects of reality or the world are structured, or our history, or certain aspects of physics or magic, what we call magic, which is really like science, hidden science, or like hidden history or hidden things. They're telling you stories, or like Indiana Jones, right? With the Ark of the Covenant, or the Holy Grail, or different things. They're telling it to you in a way that they're not telling it to you, or like National Treasure, or even Pirates of the Caribbean. They have segments in there where they tell you straight up certain aspects of what those explorers and those pirates were dealing with, and they veil it through a story or through symbolism. The Matrix is another one that just tells you straight up. It's a documentary of when we plug into this dimension from a higher dimension, but that dimension itself is a lower dimension than the dimension above it. And there's a big war going on from the higher dimensions that we don't know about in this dimension. And when we get to the higher dimension, we realize that there really is a huge battle going on for the last human stronghold in Zion. And it's not a metaphor, but it's a documentary. So we got to realize that a lot in Hollywood is the real tinsel hidden beneath the phony tinsel. The power of Hollywood, both regular and global, because don't forget, their influence is global, is increased by 2 for each media personality in your power structure. And Hollywood, of course, influences all media around the world. And a big part of the world media is Bollywood. Especially lately, in the last couple decades, it's changed. It used to have certain morals which Hollywood has always been questionable about, and Bollywood has been kind of respectable, but then they had to push certain boundaries with the media and introduce certain narratives and certain paradigms into the popular culture, and they had to do it in a culture that wasn't so ready and wasn't so willing to receive some of these ideas. But they did it through media, and they did it through certain arguments of arguing for independence, or certain cultural arguments. And it's interesting when you watch the movies, and especially if you're coming from a knowledge of that culture, so you know how they manipulate your mind and how the stories manipulate people's minds. They use a lot of drama, and they use a lot of like this push-pull kind of emotional tug of war. But the movies are different, and they have a big influence in the world. They're also very influenced by Hollywood, and this whole narrative, this whole paradigm that Hollywood is spreading is an international kind of spider. It's an octopus that's got its tentacles basically in every corner of the world media, because all media will ultimately be influenced by the media coming out of the English media. And it's not just the media, it's also the music industry. Here we see the recording industry increase the power of all your media personalities by 2 and all your other personalities by 1. So of course you have the top 10. It's like they tell you what the best music is, and then they list it. Really, the best music? You mean to tell me that that's the best music? Music. As a musician, I can speak for actual music, people that actually make music in chord progressions and do all that kind of complicated stuff that makes a really cool sounding song. It's not a catchy loop with some weird message. That it's obvious that there's an agenda when you analyze this, but if you're just consuming it and you're blind to it, you don't know it. But how does the music actually make you feel? How does it make you feel when you're listening to it? If it's creating a series of disharmony or sort of an antagonism with like the external world, or just in interaction or experience, then you know it's not edifying, and it's not conducive to being your best version. It's not conducive to creating a life that's your best life. So you want to listen to music that facilitates that. I'm not just saying listen to all rainbows and sunshine and happy music. That has its place, but we must put things into perspective. We must see things for what they are. If something is not the way we want it to be, we must address it. We must look at it, face up to it. And as I'm saying, the more we own up to our past manifestations and what we maybe see as not preferring, so that we can change it to something we do prefer, the more power we have in that ability to make a manifestation match what we prefer, especially if we learn how to do it when it doesn't match. So the more practice we have waking up in this world, although easier it's going to be once we get a hang of it, because we'll already have made some manifestations that are in line with the future that we prefer to manifest, so that those wheels will have already begun to start to turn, and we'll already be advancing down that road a little bit already. But the music industry is very powerful, and they put a lot of not only subliminals but overt messages into their music.
Who are you?
I'm Agent Kelly. I'm with the government.
Oh, thank God. Did you know that Fiona and Wyatt are using that machine to send subliminal messages through our music? They're trying to create an army of mindless teenagers to make them buy things and even control their thoughts.
They what?
Oh, come on. You knew about this from the very beginning.
Gentlemen, arrest that woman and that man.
What?
On charges of conspiracy against the youth of America.
You can't be serious.
Oh, I'm serious, man. This is a very serious offense. Sorry, Fiona, but they're onto us, and somebody's got to take the fall.
You bastard!
Besides, after the concert, we were going to shut down your entire operation anyway. We found that subliminal messages work much better in movies.
Josie and the Pussycats is the best movie ever.
All right, let's go.
And that clip's actually very funny, because when the bullet hits you and you realize, whoa, this is a mind control operation. This is an intelligence operation. And like I said in the previous episode, it's what James Bond really is all about. It's about making the agency look cool and diverting it and creating that sort of violence and sexy kind of thriller image, when the real way of mind control and intelligence operations was through media, and the movies actually were a method of this mind control operation. No joke. No joke. We got to be really careful about these movies, particularly that portray the government and aspects of the government in a certain way, because that's what the government wants you to think about them. And to be honest, they're not all saints. Let's just put it that way.
Here, Chief. Ready for another exciting secret mission.
014, your mission today is to get this attaché case through to the Secretary of Defense. Now, it's a very dangerous mission, and you could be killed.
Oh, well, that's spy biz.
You feel up to it?
Of course. You are talking to the greatest secret agent since Beethoven.
I didn't know Beethoven was a secret agent.
You see how great he was?
But you got to take control of your mind. You got to have control of your mind, because ultimately, at the end of the day, when all else is taken away, you have nothing else left. This is the thing. When people say, oh, materialism is unfounded because you can't take any of this stuff with you when you die. You can't take your money with you. You can't take your house with you. You can't even take your relationships with you. So everything that's physical, that exists in the physical, you can't take with you. So it's pointless to really pursue it. And as it says in Ecclesiastes, it's all striving after wind. It's all vanity. You're not gaining anything by going ahead in this physical life. But the truth is, there is one thing that we can get in this life, that we can take with us, that we keep forever. And that is the character that we develop, of course, through the circumstances and the events that we work through. That character and that fortitude will last forever. And we take it with us as we progress and as we go along, because what we learn, we have learned, and we continue to learn as integral spiritual beings. Our spirit integrates everything from this physical body, but the physical body is a step down from the spirit, so it doesn't know everything that spirit or that causal soul or the higher dimension that's plugged into this dimension, however you want to describe it, whatever is known by that broader perspective cannot all 100% be filtered down to this level. So it has to be seen through a filter, and what can't be seen through the physical filter cannot be understood by the physical brain, because the physical brain is the conduit that's picking up this broader ocean of consciousness. So my neural net is picking up a specific aspect of consciousness that's related to the experience that Joel is having. And your neural net is slightly different, and so it's related to your experience, but as a human, it's very much similar. And so it's different from species, it's different from, and it goes on, and there's different networks that plug into this matrix. So it's not just neurons, but neurons are a form of a more focused form, maybe. There are less focused forms, and perhaps there are more. Perhaps AI and some other sort of atomic fractalized structures can actually have a much more concentrated effect at condensing consciousness into a manifested physical form. But that's a subject for debate, and we can get into that later. Maybe I'll make videos on that. I actually want to discuss more of what I've discovered on the nature of consciousness in other videos, because as I manifest and I realize what aspects of my state and of my consciousness are creating these events around me, I'm able to adjust it and able to better describe the way to work through these manifestations and a way to kind of adjust your science and your knowledge of consciousness and how to practically apply it. But one of the first things that needs to be done is to unplug from the matrix. The matrix, the ultimate matrix right now being the mainstream media, because it's a cesspool of fear and manipulation and ignorance, willful ignorance, lying through omission, and creating a false paradigm of antagonism and dichotomy when there really should be none. There should be unanimity among all the people. All the people should have a common goal, and that's to get humanity to a better level and not to regress, not to create discord, and not to create all this commotion. We already have a way forward, and it's being inhibited through us by people who are being blinded by the media ultimately. And that's what it's coming down to. We don't need to talk about the forces that are behind the media, because we're talking about economic and political forces that are literally at war with each other right now. This is an international issue, and we are all kind of being played if we are being played by the media. But if we are not, there's a higher consciousness that is actually here to save us. And if we just plug into that, it is strong enough. For the few of us that do, even if it's 1%, all we need is the 100th monkey effect for us to plug into this tsunami that is literally crashing through humanity. And we have to be aware of it. We have to be in tune with it. And once we are, we'll receive it. It will literally be funneled down into us and out into the external world through us. And as we create more of these ripples, then we'll literally be able to separate from the paradigms that held humanity back. We'll see humanity rise to a new level. And the people that are stuck behind the veil of the media, they'll end up being closed off behind that curtain and being separated, or they'll be brought to our side and they'll end up seeing things clearly without the veil. And that actually brings up an interesting point with the voice of reason.
The voice of reason! Hey, where's my mule?
So, Voice of Reason says, people who look to the media for answers are looking to external circumstances for validation. We have to realize our true power, and once we do, we'll know that the truth was always within us and will start to manifest from a space from within rather than looking for external validation. And that's very interesting because there's a lot of people out there that are just fed up and they're stressed because they're listening to the media and they want to know more and they want to know the next step and how this thing is going to be solved and when are we going to be able to take off the masks. But the truth is never going to be told by the media. And that's why I'm going to play this clip right now, because this subject is so drastic and so severe that it takes the Joker to tell the truth in its entirety.
People keep saying, I can't wait until this COVID thing is over. I can't wait until we don't have to wear masks anymore. They sit and they wait. They're terrified. They wait for instructions while the life they once knew vanished before their very eyes. They sit and they wait for the man on TV to tell them it's okay. It's safe, everyone! Take off your masks! Go outside! Go back to school! Go back to work! Everything is back to normal! No more 6 feet apart! No more waiting in lines! No more social distancing! It's over! You're free! How can you allow this to go on? Don't you understand? Can't you see it? Comply! Wear a mask! I won't comply. That's what you tell your friends. But they got you. Oh, they got you. Look in the mirror. They transformed you into an obedient socialist without any effort whatsoever. They got you. You scream, I have my rights, but you'll do what they say. They control you. They own you. Don't you know what you are? You're a puppet, a slave, a number. Brainwashed and reporting for duty. It could be worse, right? Right? You patiently wait for your next set of instructions. You wait to be told where you can go and what you can do. You're frozen, afraid to leave the couch. You've traded your freedom, your family, your friends, and your life for orders. You don't know how to function without them. You're beside yourself. You've been programmed to put that mask on, to follow orders, to listen, to cooperate, to stand in line, to be afraid. That mask is now a part of you, your comfort food, your patch of honor, the mark of your obedience. I'll never wear a mask, but then quickly comply after being ordered by a grocery store employee to do so. With no scientific premise whatsoever. You assimilated purely out of fear. You gave your life to them. They control every aspect of your existence. And you don't question a thing. Let the brainwashing begin. You yell, release the Kraken, but then quickly bow down to their demands. Thanksgiving is canceled. There won't be a Christmas. The lockdown continues. Do as we say, not as we do. For 8 months, they took away your freedom, and you just stood there and let them take it. It's happening again. Get back to your house. You will comply. It's what you've been trained to do. First, it was the seatbelt, then the car seat, the helmet, and now the mask. What will they think of next?
I know that was difficult to listen to. And it really hits a nerve because it's true. And what are we going to do about it? What are we doing about it? Of course, there are people standing up. Of course, there are protests. Of course, people are trying to make this information known despite the censorship of mainstream and social media. There is a whole momentum that's building that will break this threshold because there's a barrier being built by the resistance. And the barrier can only survive for so long. And that's why I say the momentum that's moving into this new era It has to progress if we're moving into a new era, and that momentum has to increase. And of course, we never knew that we were in the Kali Yuga until we awoke from the Kali Yuga and we realized how far backwards we were. And we realized this is how far we can be. This is our potential, and we just haven't stepped into it. We got to fix a whole bunch of stuff. We got to implement things like free energy and international understanding and awareness as B'nai Elohim. We have to implement a skill-based economy rather than a material-based economy. And we have to influence a community of holistic brainism and revamp our societies through a more integral society than we have. And we have visions for that. People have the designs already set up for this, and we're moving forward. We just have to clean up a lot of the backlog of what has been progressing all along up until this point. So in order to do so, it has to be exposed for the corrupt systems that they are. And once they are, we already have systems that are able to step in and take their place. And that's what we're seeing happen. It's taking a bit of time because we live in a dense 3D physical reality. But as we move beyond that, we'll shed these latent time-space boundaries and we'll move to a more etheric time-space level where it's still time-space, but a lot of things will manifest a lot more quicker. And that's what we realized as we learned to manifest, because the 3D world, the dense world that was of the last age, the Piscean age, has been a realm of not knowing that we're manifesting. The motto of Pisces is dual. It's both I doubt and I believe. So we have this kind of war, but it's never a sincere knowingness, as opposed to, interestingly enough, the motto of Aquarius, which is I know. This is the gnosis, the true knowledge that comes from the experience from within. So once we step into that knowingness of how to manifest, we're able to implement. And then, of course, we'll move through the ages as we progress. But as we know that's what we're stepping into, the knowingness. So, of course, we have to see where the manipulation is coming from. We have to seal it off, and we have to feed ourselves with what is good for our bodies, not just in terms of food, but in terms of what we see, what we hear, what we ultimately end up thinking, because that all comes through what we're feeding our thoughts with. People say it's not related, but it definitely is. Like if you watch a movie before you go to sleep, chances are that's going to be on your mind as you're sleeping. It's going to manifest in some aspect of your dreamscape. If you're aware of your dreamscape, many people go to sleep in such a state where they're not capable of remembering their dreams because their mind just isn't at enough rest in order to incorporate all those experiences. A lot of people aren't incorporating their fullest experience from their waking moments. And a lot of people resort to substances in order to keep that down, in order to keep themselves from integrating all that stuff. It's very paradoxical when we're moving into a higher realm and people just want to hold themselves back. But as we're seeing, there's a difference between people being created here, and we're seeing the old world separate from the new world. And those that raise themselves to the level of B'nai Elohim will actually step into their purest and truest and fullest DNA manifestation as fullest and truest and purest humanoid B'nai Elohim beings. Transdimensional, higher vibrational, and manifesting through gnosis, awareness, and beingness. Manifesting through beingness, being, the life, the experience that we know we're deserving of, and thus creating the world that we know is our true utopia. So that being said, I just want to wish everybody an amazing new year. This has been an amazing journey, and with the journey of this channel, I mean, this message has developed, and just the receptivity of this message, I feel there's an energy that's pushing us forward, and it's like we're riding a wave, and all of a sudden the momentum of the wave is coming up behind us, and that crest is forming as we're crashing on a new shore. The world is moving forward, and you can come either willingly or unwillingly. This wave is crashing on a new shoreline. You can either be on the foaming edge of the leading crest, or you can be caught up in the undertow, fighting the movement forward, but moving forward nonetheless. We are crashing onto this new shoreline of starseeds and alchemists, of syncretism and manifesting the Messiah. So tune in, because that whole awareness is pervading humanity as we speak. Do some inner work, do some meditation, do a little bit to tune in to that divine spark inside of you, that center point that you can focus on and concentrate on connecting with that divine spark. The divine spark wants to connect with you and plant a seed in you that will grow into a plant that is your specific plant, that is going to be in the garden, that is the utopia that we are all partaking in growing as the manifestation of a new era. But I want to wish everybody an amazing year, because what's coming is absolutely out of this world. And I mean, it is a brand new world in a brand new era. So be well, be safe, and be optimistic, because good times are coming.
Good things are coming. Good things.
Agape, salaam, namaste.
Welcome to Club Media. The only place in space where what you feel is what you are. Viewership is membership. Nothing but your attention. Welcome to Club Media. It's not your money, it's not your hard work. All it is, your attention. And here's the best part. You get entertained. Wendy. And here's the best part. No need to think. Media will do it for you. Viewership is membership. Welcome to Club Media. And if you want to know the truth, we've got it. Truth. The quality or fact of being true, honest, sincere. And we know that all media we ingest is always the truth. Truth. The quality or fact of being true, honest, sincere. No need to think. Let someone else do it for you. As a person thinks in his heart, so is he. It's time to defrag your mind. Optimize. Media is not truth. Always. It's just a process. Man. Sorry. Person. Keep your heart with all diligence. Out of it come the key issues of life. We're just vessels.